I thought I'd have a little fun with you and you could see my humble beginnings. Can you figure out which one I am?
We got 60 minutes of dancing again. It's our Halloween show right here on Dance Station.
You can tell how old this video is. We actually shot it here in St. Louis at Club PJ's, which is Panama Jacks, East St. Louis, Collinsville. Then we wound up here at Club Mercedes, Delmar and Union. So those are my humble beginnings. It was a Soul Train American Bandstand mix. A lot of these kids got a chance to go and dance with MC Hammer, Patrice Rushen. Actually, one of our dancers from this show went on tour with Britney Spears. So these are my humble beginnings, just to give you an idea of what's going on with me and how I got started. But I produce a show now called Morning Blend. Okay, BG, I need your help again so I can get started. So I started coming to the Venture Cafe and being a part of the ecosystem about 2.5 years ago. And I saw there was a problem as a TV producer. I saw there was a problem in St. Louis. We see all this information at Venture Cafe, Olin Business School, Commerce Bank shares, Business Education Series, and Enterprise Bank on how to get started in the business, how to put a business plan together, a marketing plan together, but it was always a small crowd. And one of the issues for me was, not only was it a small crowd, it was not a very diverse crowd. So instead of putting my regular TV show on there, I'm a movie critic, and I had a movie show that was on there. I decided to do something called Morning Blend, and the theme of our show was telling a better story about St. Louis. This is a show I have on the air now. I feature startups, small businesses. We've had partnership on the show. Jim Waddle, my chief partner for Edward Jones, Mark Sutherland, the mayor, 3 weeks into being mayor. I didn't know we even had a port authority here in St. Louis, so I get the information now. I get a chance to do satellite interviews. Coach Joe Gibbs, for those of you who know, you're old enough. Dan Reynolds was a fun interview with the Imagine Dragons. And also Keith Stevens, Dean of the Quinlan School of Business at Loyola University. We're on CW11. We cover the entire region. I try to get information out as much as I can. We're actually thinking about going to other markets. Here are some of my past clients. I'm a good salesperson, so I've had Drury Inn, St. Louis Cardinals, GM. Also had past partners because I'm a movie critic with the studios. You can see Walt Disney, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers. And I've been on every station in this market except for Channel 5. The only reason I haven't been on Channel 5 is because it costs way too much. You see, I've been on these other stations. Here are some of my sponsors from actually this year. You can see that Explore St. Louis, which is the very top left. We were part of their Sterling K. Brown campaign talking about St. Louis. St. Louis Development Corporation is a major sponsor of mine. I love Otis. Otis has a problem with North St. Louis and the NGA. So on our show, we're here to tell a better story about the NGA, hopefully to sell it to North St. Louis, because there's still a small problem with communication there. St. Louis University is a major sponsor. Vatterott College was a sponsor. Express Scripts, A.B. Maury, Gateway Metro Federal Credit Union. How I generate revenue from my show is basically, you can see here, and people are actually paying this, but our main revenue actually comes from you guys, because part of our show is we actually get the information about you. We actually do digital videos for your digital marketing and your social media marketing. We actually aired on our show first. You can see where it is. It's called an advertorial. It costs $100 per minute. We put it on our show, and then we give you a copy for your digital marketing and your social media. Here are some of the people I've had on my show. This is Rocket Careers. They're a startup. This is Matthew Hansard, who's actually here at T-Rex, was on our TV show. Mark Bowers for Product Camp. Midwest Cyber was on our show. Startup, she has apps to speak for people who are deaf. We do satellite interviews. Just two young men started something called Life is Good. They're out of Baltimore. And every now and then I get an artist on the show who sponsors. That's Toni Braxton on the right. She's an R&B singer. What we're working on right now is actually doing a series of what we call business cafe or coffee talks with venture capitalists, innovators, and with startups. We are hoping to do it at Park Avenue Coffee, either at the Cortex or right across the street over here on 10th Street. We're also looking to build a studio. We're going to try and raise $2 million to build a studio right here at 7th and Washington, right above High Point Burger. There's 20,000 square feet with 15 to 20-foot ceilings. And we're looking to put a studio in there so we can actually do videos, a major studio for the startups, also produce television programming. We're going after these cities. We see St. Louis is number 4 as far as the best startup cities in the Midwest. That's why we call it Midwest, Morning Blend Midwest. We actually want to go after Springfield, Des Moines, Grand Rapids, Milwaukee, and Omaha, Nebraska first. We want to hit the small markets first and work our way up to Chicago. My team, this is what our revenue looks like once we get started. Our first year in 10 markets, we hope to do 1.5 million. Within the 3rd year, we take it back. BJ, one more time. How do I go back? There we go, I got it. 3rd year, we hit 50 markets. We look to make 40 million. The 5th year, in 210 markets within the United States, we're looking to do 100. We also think our 7th year, we can get in the UK, Australia, and Japan. Of course, there's my little ugly face up there. I'm the guy that's running this thing. Mano Nakas was actually the syndicator of sports programming for Fox Sports Midwest. Of course, Disney came in, took over, and he was let go. He's agreed to be a part of our program, what we're doing with Morning Blend Midwest, to get it syndicated in other markets. Denise Naughton is a producer, news producer out of New York and Phoenix. She lives in Washington, Missouri right now. She's over at Nextport. She's going to be my main producer. Sheldon Ripson was the news director for Channel 11 here in St. Louis, which is CW11 for the last 11 years. And our production team also consists of Daniel Seckendorf and Colleen Thompson. I'm James Thomas, and one of the things that we're looking to do is to help startups, again, do digital marketing videos and social media videos, and also get the word out across the country about the startup community and innovative community. Thank you.
For questions.
And I will say this, it is harder doing a live audience than being on television.
This is a tough crowd.
It is a tough crowd.
Who would like to start? Okay, take it away, Mary.
Okay, a show of hands in this room. How many actually watch television? That's my question, James. Is the television market big enough? Is it shrinking?
Actually, it's not just the television market going after. That's number 1 for us. The television market is not shrinking. We're also going to do podcast, video, and audio podcast, and we're working on the website. So, for example, right now in St. Louis, we were on ABC 30 for about a year and a half until last September. I got a phone call from CW11. They actually saw my numbers on ABC 30. We were at about 8,000 households, and they offered me a better time slot. We were on Sunday morning, 6:30 a.m., the lead-in for Good Morning America. For a half hour Sunday mornings, 8,000. And then they suggested, hey, look, we can put you on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. I was paying $550 and now I'm paying $400 Saturday morning. Since last October when we started with Channel 11 up until now, we've gone from 8,000 households to now 52,000 households. So and you're talking about in a half hour on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. So yeah, television is still huge.
With the advertising segment that you offer, the $100 per minute, is that to create it or to show it? Do you all have a
No,
separate
we created.
price?
They actually come on the show.
Okay.
It actually, we put it together for them. It airs on our TV show first, Channel 11. We ask for a lot of B-roll, a lot of video, any photos that you have. We actually put it together for you. Maybe I can show you if I can. No, I don't have anything on here. I don't think I don't have my external hard drive to actually show it to you. But if you go to our YouTube channel, you can actually see full video segments from people who have been on our show. But anywhere between 5 and 6 minutes is the average.
Thank you. Can you go back a couple of slides to your cost? Right. So sorry, you went so fast through here. I couldn't really see like what the costs were. So spots per week for 13 weeks, $800.
$1,200. It 3 at the top, 3 30s for 13 weeks, 2 30s, $800.
Yeah, that's what I asked. So explain to me what that means. Like, what does that mean? Spots per week.
It's a 30-second
Yeah.
spot like a commercial.
Okay. So you get 2 30-second
Spots
commercials.
per week for 13 weeks for 8.
Okay. So what do you think of those posts? Which are the ones that you think are the most productive for you? Like, which ones are you going after?
Which ones are the most productive right now?
For you, yeah.
Advertorials are the most productive. Segment sponsors are the most productive. Show sponsors is the most productive right now. So that's where my revenue comes from. For example, segment sponsors, St. Louis Development Corporation. We went out and we interviewed for example, Project Connect with Jay Watson was on our show. Susan Taylor talking about the Port Authority, which I didn't know we had. We had Laura Costello, who's over the LRA property. We had Leonard Johnson, who's actually does seminars on LRA properties and doing contracts. So St. Louis Development Corporation actually pays for a segment on our show where we feature all those people. Our show sponsor, our biggest one for the last year and a half, has been Explore St. Louis, and they have actually paid that bottom up for 20 weeks, and they've done it for a year and a half.
What is a market?
St. Louis, the region,
So like when you say,
Baltimore, Kansas City, Nashville, Memphis.
as in Midwest region is one market?
No, a market is St. Louis,
Okay, a city?
Kansas City,
Okay.
Nashville, Memphis, Austin.
So
Those are
how do you reach those particular markets?
you get on the station in those particular markets.
By which station exactly?
For example, Kansas City has a Fox affiliate, CW Channel 29.
So it's cable, TV?
No, sir, it is broadcast television.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's it.
yeah, I deal with the broadcast stations. Only because they reach 100% of the market. For example, here in St. Louis, Spectrum, they still only reach about 300,000 households, and there's 1.4 million households in the city of St. Louis. The rest of it is taken up by broadcast television, which reaches 100% of the market. There's AT&T and then DirecTV.
Okay, thank you very much.
So help me understand, if I'm going to give you some money, because I want to do it, I'm actually in all of Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Southern Illinois, right? So if I was like, hey, some of those markets I'd like to be on, if I purchased here, it's just for here.
It's just for St. Louis,
All
right?
right, so tell me why I would choose $2,500. Like, what's the difference between the $2,500 segment sponsor versus the $800 30-second spots? Like, so I'm getting a minute for 13 weeks. What am I getting for the segment sponsor that's so much more?
This segment is brought to you by so-and-so and so-and-so. For example, St. Louis Development Corporation. We put the logo up there at the beginning and the end of the segment. And this segment has been brought to you by At the End. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, St. Louis Development Corporation, Explore St. Louis, St. Louis University. St. Louis University is a segment sponsor who actually gets commercial spots too. For example, we've interviewed some of their people. They're people that have graduated from the business school, but they also have the Billiken spot, and they also have that 200 years clock that they had. So I just kind of throw in, because they already have commercials, segment sponsor and the commercials. So for example, if you just do commercials, yeah, 2 or the 3. But if you're a segment sponsor and you have commercials, that runs 2. So it's like an added value for the dollars. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's added value. I'm not sure the added value, because if I'm looking at, let's assume, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Let's
Just yell.
Yeah, so let's assume it's the same price in all those markets. So for me, like if you said, hey, it's gonna be $800 in Omaha as well. Let's just assume-
No.
Let's just assume so, right?
Okay.
Or whatever, even if it's $900, it's not gonna be that much more,
Right.
right? For me, it would make more sense to do 3 $800 for 13 weeks and get a minute.
3 30-second spots at $12.50.
Right, for a whole 13 weeks, rather than paying you $2,500 just for you to say sponsored by.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's what I'm saying, I just.
The sponsored by is they actually have a segment. In other words, they're promoting their business school.
Okay.
So we actually interview people who have graduated, and they talk about the program, and they also have a certificate program. So we talk about that. That's their segment,
Right.
okay? They're St. Louis U people, along with, hey, this segment is brought to you by, and has been brought to you by. Along with that, the school itself gets those commercial spots.
Got it.
That's how I sold it to them.
Over here.
So you had said earlier that you were going to invest $2 million in a studio here, correct?
I'm not going to invest. We're going to try and raise $2 million. Yeah.
I'm saying the company,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
The company.
Yeah.
Okay, and so whenever I saw how many spaces you wanted to enter into over the next 5 years, I mean, are you going to have to invest that type of money? Will the company have to have that kind of money invested in each area to be able to interview local people? Or are you going to be able to do a lot of that in the original studio? Because it seems like that's a lot to have to...
In the original studio via satellite or Skype.
Okay, so it's not actually going to... The cost won't go up $2 million per area.
No,
You'll be able
not.
to
It's just the studio's located right here in St. Louis. We do satellite and we do Skype.
Okay.
And we get a lot of packaged interviews too.
What do you mean by that?
For example, I do satellite interviews, and for example, they're in New York or Atlanta. They're actually in a studio being videotaped, and they can hear me, but I'm actually on my phone doing the interview. Then I come
Okay.
back and retape it with me.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
So that kind of can lower the cost quite a bit.
That's
even
what
if
we're doing
you
right now.
travel.
There's actually no additional cost.
Okay,
We're
great.
actually looking at the $2 million to actually rent, buy equipment, pay staff.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a really good plan.
Yeah, and the other thing is the most important. It's interesting, people talk about production and the news director and everything else. Still, to me, the 2 most important people that I can hire starting off are salespeople, experienced sales staff. Someone who actually knows broadcast television and understands advertising.
Yes. This gentleman had a question first.
Yeah.
Oh, you good? Okay.
James, can you tell us a little bit about the demographics of those 52,000 houses?
Actually, yeah. We're actually, surprisingly, it's 55% women, 45% men between the ages of 18 and 49. We seem to have a sweet spot between the ages of 25 and 40.
And that's the demographic you want, isn't it?
Yeah, and here's the fun part. We have someone here who's going to be presenting next week. I actually met her husband. He actually came down for a meeting yesterday. He's actually going to do an editorial on the show. He's actually seen the show. And that's a lot of people see the show, and I get phone calls. I get phone calls from the station who give me leads of people who have seen the show and say, hey, look, they want to be a part of it.
Any more questions? No? Well, the final question is, you've kind of said what you want, but could you just distill, what can the community do for you?
There's two things. There's a couple things I'm actually looking for. I'm an old guy. I'm in front of the camera. I'm actually looking for young talent to be on the air. I'd rather sit back and be the executive producer and run things versus be on the air. So number one, I'm actually looking for new on-air talent to be on the show. That's number one. Number two, if you know of any startup that needs any type of video work done and exposure, not only on television, but for their digital marketing and social media, throw them on my way. And last but not least, if you know an experienced salesperson who's been in advertising, please throw them on. Those are the three things you can do for. But number one right now, I could really use the on-air talent. I think people are tired of seeing my ugly face on the air.
Oh, who could get tired of something of that? All right, well, thank you very much for putting us together.